Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Srinivasa Biology Tutorial. For this section to discuss NCERT, the class 11th, the Biomolecules chapter part 2. The living organisms have a number of carbon compounds in which the hydrocyclic rings. So here the living organisms, the more carbons has in what? In a hydrocyclic rings has found. In some of these in nitrogen bases, adenine, guanine, cytosine, uracil, thymine. So the different nitrogen bases they are having as a completely rings. When they are found and attached to as a sugar, they are called as a nucleoside. When that you take as any one particular the nucleotide, when you take as any one particular nucleotide, it is in a pentose sugar, it is in a sugar molecule. They are having as a nitrogen base, here they are having as in a pentose sugar, phosphate group. It is in a phosphate group. So it's saying about what here, when to attach with as a sugar, they are called as a nucleoside. Here, when found attached to as a sugar molecule, when they get called as nucleosides, in that see here nucleotide is different and then nucleoside is different. Here nucleosides are nothing but as what, when they get attached with as any the nitrogen basis, means nitrogen basis as present here, that is called as a nucleoside. This entire this that pentose sugar, phosphate group and nitrogen base is present, that is called as a nucleotide. Now the phosphate group has also they are found in that in esters, the sugars is called as a nucleotides. So phosphate group, pentose sugar, nitrogen base is present, called that is a nucleotide. The adenosine, guanosine, thymine, they are yielding and cysteine, the nucleosides. Yeah. Now adenylenic acid and thyminic acid, guanylate acid and uracilic acid and cysteinic acids and these are completely nucleotides. The nucleic acids like as in DNA, RNA also construct as nucleotides only. The DNA and RNA functional genetic material. So here RNA, DNA, they are completely here DNA as well as in RNA. It is these are also completely nucleotides. Okay, now here DNA consists of as what? It has in that in a thymine. Here it consists of what? In a uracil. Here consists of as what? In a uracil is present. That is the nucleotides. Okay, that is primary and secondary metabolates. Primary and secondary metabolates. They are mostly the exciting aspects of the chemistry deals with as in that isolating the thousands of any compounds. So here primary and secondary metabolates, they are completely what? They are isolated from as in 1,000 components like as in a small and big from as in a living organisms, with determining as in their in a structure and possible toxins of them. So in the living organism, they consist of as in a primary metabolites as well as any secondary metabolites. They are completely they are isolating from the organisms. Now, if one were to look as completely one of the way they make the list biomolecules such as a list wide have the thousands of organic compounds including as amino acids and sugars. So you take as one on the inorganic compounds like including as what, they are in a amino acids and some sugar also they given. For reasons they are given as in the section in 9.10, the table is given as in a 9.10. Now see that one also. Now can you call these biomolecules in a metabolates? The animal tissue, one noticed the presence of in a such the categorize the compounds show as in a figure 9.1, like as any calcium, sodium, sodium, magnesium, like these are completely their elements. Now these are completely called as what in a primary metabolites. Those are called as what in a primary metabolites, which are which when their analysis plants, the fungal and microbial cells, one would be to see the thousands of compounds they are that we call as a primary metabolites like as alkaloids, flavonoids, rubbers, essential oils, antibiotics and color pigments, scents, gums, species. These are called as in secondary metabolites. So here which we are directly deriving we call as what, primary metabolites. So we are deriving from as in that other components like as in a here rubbers, alkaloids, flavonoids, essential oils, antibiotics, color pigments, scents, gums, species. These are completely called as what, in a secondary metabolites. They get given as in a here, that is in a table 9.3, they given as what, in a secondary metabolites, like as in alkaloids, see first pigments, carotenoids, anthocyanins, etc. Alkaloids, morphine, the codeine, etc. Terpenes, any monoterpenes and diterpenes and triterpenes, etc. Next, essential oils and lemongrass oil as well as some essential oils. And the toxins are the urbine and racine. The lectins as an A, then carmelavalin A, drugs is an A, then valblastin and curcumin, etc. And polymorphic substances like as rubber, gums and cellulose scents like examples. Okay, these are. While the primary metabolites, while here the primary metabolites, yeah, while the primary metabolites has the different the differentiable functions and they play known role the normal physiological process, we do not have in a moment. So these are mostly the secondary metabolites we are using like. So understand the role of the functions of the all secondary metabolites, the host organisms. So they are completely the secondary metabolites we are obtaining from as any only host organisms. Now, however, the many of them they are useful the human welfare, rubbers, drugs, species, the spices and scents and the pigments. We are using as any humans. Now, in some secondary metabolites having that ecological importance, they are later the chapter, and here to you will be the learn more detail. So the remaining they have very important things also there that is to discuss in a that your previous section in next classes. Next to discuss about as any biomicromolecules. To discuss as what in a biomacromolecules. See that there is one future is common for all components found in that in a acid soluble pool. They have a one common function for that in inorganic and organic. They have molecular weight is the ringing from as an 18 daltons to around 800 daltons approximately. So the molecular weight around as an 8 daltons to 800 daltons. The acid soluble fractions they are only the types of organic compounds, that is in a proteins, nucleic acids and polysaccharides and lipids. So organic compounds, some acid soluble compounds is there now, those called as proteins, nucleic acids, polysaccharides and then lipids. Now in this class of the components which has the exception of lipids having a molecular weight in that in a range the 10,000 daltons. The lipid the molecular weight around as in a 10,000 daltons and above also sometimes and above also. For this in a very reason the biomolecules, the chemical components found as in living organisms are there two types. But basically they are having as in two types of their biomolecules as present. Now, those which having a molecular weight is less than 1000 daltons usually referred to as any micromolecules or simple biomolecules. So, below the 10,000, below the 1000 molecules daltons, those called as a micromolecules or simple biomolecules. While this which are the found in acid insoluble, the fractions is called as a macromolecules or biomacromolecules. If in case while there's those which have a found in acid soluble fraction, if in case they having as a their acid insoluble fraction, those called as a biomacromolecules. Now these molecules their insoluble fraction, that exception of the lipids and their polymetric substances. They are called as what? Polymetric substances. When why do the lipids? So those molecules are molecular weight do not excited completely. They are above excited 800 daltons. Come under the acid insoluble fractions, that is in a macromolecules fraction. The lipids are indeed at a small molecular weight. The components that present in not only that arranged as into a structures like as a cell membrane and other. So basically, in these lipids also we kept in macromolecules. Why? Because they having as that in a cell membrane and other the membranes. When there are other membranes also they present, so hence it is they completely make as kept under the macromolecules. Okay. Next, when we grind the tissue and dispersing the cell structure, the cell membrane and other membranes like broken into pieces from as an vesicles which are not water soluble. So if in case complete you do the complete grind, they are complete not water soluble. Therefore, these are in membrane the fragments from as an vesicle get as an separating along with as an acid insoluble pool, and hence the macromolecule fraction. The lipids are strictly complete called as a macromolecules. So completely they are complete not they're water insoluble. So hence it is called as what? It is a completely in a lipids are the macromolecules. Okay, next after the acids soluble that represent the roughly the cytoplasmic compositions. So mostly these are completely they're made up of what? These are completely made up of in a cytoplasmic composition. They completely has in what? Cytoplasmic composition. The macromolecules form as in cytoplasmic organelles become as in a acid insoluble. The acid insoluble fractions that together to as in a represent as in that enter the chemical compositions of a living tissue of living organism. So these major functions what? To get completely to represent as together as in that chemical compositions. Now, in summary of we are the represents in that in a chemical composition the living tissue about the abundant point we and the arrange that in chemical wise observed that as in a water is the most abundant chemical living organism. The given table 9.4. See here in the total atmosphere or total living organism, the water is the most abundant organism. They given clearly here. See the component water that completely has a 70%, 70 to 89, 80 to 90, sorry 70 to 80. The percentage of the total cellular mass is the water is 70 to 90% and proteins 10 to 15%, carbohydrates 3%, lipids 2% and nucleic acids 5.7% and ions has in a completely 1%. So this is a average composition of any cells. Okay, this is a any some information about as any that biomacromolecules. Proteins are polypeptides. They are a linear chain of amino acids linked by peptide bonds. So as in figure 9.3. So here that enter the amino acids to get form as any one chain like structure with help of any peptide bond. So for example, these are the completely amino acids to get bind with as any their peptide bond. So these are completely in a protein chain. It is in a protein chain. The entire protein is a polymer of amino acids. There are 20 types of amino acids is present like as in alanine, there cysteine, proline, tryptophan, lysine, etc. So different type 20 types of amino acids as present. The protein is in a heteropolymer and it is not a homopolymer. So mostly protein is what? It is in a heteropolymer. Heteropolymer it is not for as in a homopolymer. A homopolymer of only one type of monomer the repeating n number of times. So here homopolymer means what? Only one type of amino acids or monomers repeatingly the number of times they come, that is called as in a the monomer. This information about that amino acids that contain the important the latter your nutrition lesson. So in this enter the information you get as in the nutrition lesson. When you learn about as in certain amino acids or then essential for your health that having that the supply through as our diet. So this enter the proteins to get help for as our health when you take as in a the diet. Hence that the dietary the proteins are their source of essential amino acids. They consist of what? Number of essential the amino acids as present. Therefore, the amino acids can be their essential for the essential. Some they have non-essential. Here, amino acids they have completely can be essential or non-essential. The latter, those which their body can be make while they get essential amino acids, they're through the our diet food. So essential amino acids we are taking as in how we are uptaking through the diet. And the proteins carry over the many fractions the living organisms. Some they transport the nutrition across the cell membrane. Some they are flight, the infection organisms. Some they are hormones. Some they are enzymes. So like the different the proteins to get help for as in our daily diet. For example, they given as a collagen, tryptophan, the trypsin, and insulin, antibody, and the receptors, and glutamine, the GLUT4. So these are completely what the different types of proteins, and they perform as in different functions. Okay, like as they given as clearly the collagen and the trypsin, insulin, antibody, and receptors, and GLUT. They given clearly. Okay, that is now here in some enzymes. The collagen is most abundant protein animal with they consist of what? It is a performed as the most abundant the collagen is in a most abundant protein in animals would be, and the ribulose bisphosphate carboxylase oxygenase rubisco, it is most important abundant enzyme protein for as in a biosphere. In animals is collagen, in that plants that is in a rubisco. Okay, that is. Next to discuss in a polysaccharides. Next to discuss what? In a polysaccharides. See here, these acids insoluble pellet, it is also in a polysaccharides like as in a carbohydrates, as in their another class in macromolecules. The completely the polysaccharides, the another class is what? In a macromolecules. The polysaccharides including as a long chain of sugars. So the number of their sugar molecules to get formed, it is in a number of sugar molecules as present, that is called as what? Polysaccharide chain. That is in a polysaccharide chain. They are in a thread or literally is cotton thread, is containing as in different monosaccharides, the building blocks. For example, as in a cellulose is in a polymer of one polysaccharide contain as in a only one type of monosaccharides like glucose. Example is glucose, like, so the number of monosaccharides they get formed here. Next, cellulose in a homopolymer. Here cellulose also homopolymer. Here starch is in the variant of this, but the presence of the stored of house in energy in plant tissues. So here starch is completely what? They perform as in the food. They prepare their food. They're stored in plant body or plant tissue. The animal, so another the variant is called is present, that is called as what? Glycogen. So the animals, how do they get energy to get stored? With the in the form of glycogen. Now next, in the insulin is a homopolymer. The fructose in the end of the the fructose in the polysaccharide chain, they take the glycogen. There in a right end is called as in the reducing end, and that left end is called as a non-reducing end. So one is in a non-reducing and one is in a reducing end is present. Now in these branches of the show as in from as in a, they are cotton. So for example, you take as it is in a reducing end, it is in a non-reducing end is present. Now starch form as in a helical, that is in a helical secondary structure. In fact, the starch could not hold iodine molecule. It is a helical protein, the helical portion. So here the different helical portions also to get forms. In the starch, iodine, it is blue color. Here iodine is which color? It is in a complete has in a blue color. The cellulose does not contain as in a complex helical, and hence it is called do not have in a I2. So here the cellulose does not contain as in what? I2. Does not contain as what? I2. Okay, next. So they given as in a clearly. Okay, glycogen. In plant cells, they're made up of as in a cellulose. Here, the plant cell cell wall is made up of what? Cellulose. Paper made up of in a plant pulp and cotton fiber completely was they made up of in a cellulose also. They are more complex polysaccharides in nature. They have in the building blocks, amino acids, and the chemically modified sugars, like as in the glucosamine in style, the galactomine, etc. So these are completely called as what? In the building blocks of as in some amino sugar groups. Next, exoskeleton of arthropods. For example, as in a complex, the polysaccharides is called as in a chitin. So arthropods has entered the body, they are made up of as in a chitin. And next, these complex polysaccharides is mostly in a homopolymers. So complex polysaccharides here mostly these complex the polysaccharides are called as what? Homopolymers. Very important. Here complex polysaccharides are mostly in a homopolymers. Okay. Next, remaining to discuss in the next class. Thank you for watching. Please share, subscribe and like.